Today, we're going to focus on business organizations in the principles of economics, as well as understanding the free enterprise system that we hear so much about in capitalist economies. So let's start by talking about business organizations. Basically, you guys know by looking around, there are tons and tons of different businesses around you all the time. These businesses can actually be organized into three categories. So in your notes, make sure you've written business organizations as a heading, and we're going to talk about the three types of business organizations. First, we can talk about businesses that are sometimes known as mom and pop businesses. These are typically small businesses that are in a local area. They may be one storefront, they may have a few storefronts, but these businesses are owned by a single individual or single family. We call these businesses sole proprietorships. So I want you to think of these as single owner businesses. Sole means one, a proprietor means property belongs to you. You're an owner. So these are businesses owned by one person or perhaps one family. The advantage to this type of business organization is that the owner has full control over the business. They make the policies, they determine the products, they make all the decisions, and they get to keep all the profits. The business belongs to them, the profits belong to them. The disadvantage is sort of the same thing. Because it's a single owner business, the owner is responsible for all the costs associated with the business and the liabilities of the business. This is why many small businesses are quote unquote incorporated legally so that they can deal with some of that problem. So basically, you have full control, you have full responsibility in a sole proprietorship. So you can only grow the business as far as you have the money to build it. So you're limited in that way. Now, we also know that some businesses are owned together by people. So two individuals, two families, maybe three or four individuals go together. These businesses are referred to as partnerships. So whether it's two people or five people, whatever the number, when a group of proprietors get together, we call it a partnership. And they have basically the same advantages and disadvantages as a sole proprietorship. So the advantage is that the partners have full control and they have to share the profits, right? They control all the profits. Of course, this is a little bit more complicated in working with partners, right? Who has actual control, who makes decisions. You have to negotiate that in a partnership agreement. And the disadvantages are also basically the same as a sole proprietorship. The partners have to pay all the costs, so they are limited in the amount of money they have to what's in their pockets. And they share the liability for the business. So if the business goes bankrupt or if there's some lawsuit, these are disadvantages because the partners hold all of those liabilities. Now, in the late 1800s, really early 1800s, late 1800s, the American economy began to shift so that more and more businesses were organized as corporations. Okay. So a corporation is a business entity that exists outside of individuals. Okay. I know that sounds really weird and crazy. So when a business is incorporated in the United States, it basically means that that business becomes a person in its own right. Okay, now not literally a person, like with arms and legs, but the business becomes sort of separate from individual owners. And because of that, it has certain advantages. For example, when a business is incorporated, when a corporation is created, the owners of the corporation can sell stock in the business to the public, and this allows the raising of unlimited capital. This is tremendously important for corporations. It means the owners of the business are not limited to just the money in their pockets. They sell stock to the public or to other individuals that raises money. And because of that, everybody who invests in a corporation has basically what's called limited liability. You only lose what you invest. So if I invest $100 in Microsoft stock, I can only lose that $100. If I invest $10,000, I could lose $10,000, but I don't lose everything that Microsoft is worth. I am not responsible or liable for every debt of Microsoft. The disadvantage, of course, as an owner is that the owner is now responsible to stockholders, right? So you can't just do whatever you want to do. There's usually a board of directors and you have to be responsible to stockholders. And of course, a corporation is a much more complicated thing to control as an owner. It's not just up to you what you do, but it does allow the raising of tremendous amounts of capital. Remember, one of our factors of production is capital, which can include money to invest in a business, but it allows the business to grow to tremendous sizes, right? So if you think about Microsoft or Walmart or any other large corporation. Now, these business organizations in the United States, so sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporations, are all part of what we typically refer to as the free enterprise system. Free enterprise is a essential component. Some people use it interchangeably with talking about capitalism as an economic system. And we know capitalism is a system driven by the profit motive. So you'll also see the free enterprise system referred to as the free market economy or a free market. So underneath this heading, free enterprise system, make sure you write down this definition. It is an economic system in which private businesses operate freely to make a profit with no or almost no government regulation. Now, here's where we can get into some debates. Is the United States or any economy today truly a free enterprise system? We know that we have government regulation, and it's a good thing. We have government regulation, right? We have laws against child labor. We have laws protecting workers on the job. We have laws ensuring that businesses don't create certain dangerous products and sell them to us for a profit. So we typically accept that there's going to be some government regulation. But the idea in a free enterprise system is that the government regulation doesn't stop the free operation of private businesses to make a profit. Okay. You guys are going to engage possibly in some discussion about this. So we'll get there and sort of think about sort of how the free enterprise system works. So as we're going through this discussion, I want us to think about the positives and possibly some negatives that go along with the free enterprise system. So let's look at several characteristics we want to consider. First of all, make sure you understand that private businesses in the free enterprise system can be any of the three we just talked about: sole proprietorships, partnerships, or corporations. And we need to start by understanding that in a free enterprise system, private businesses and individuals own the factors of production. FOP is an abbreviation we will commonly use for factors of production. Remember that these were land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So those sort of key elements to understanding the economy are owned privately in a free enterprise system. This means, of course, that one of the key elements, so we're going to go through 5 key elements of the free enterprise system. So make sure you put these underneath your notes, right, on free enterprise. The first key element of a free enterprise system is that it exists through voluntary exchange. This means that private businesses and individuals voluntarily agree to exchange goods and services for money, that there's no force involved, right, in this sort of system. So the voluntary exchange of goods and services for money is sort of what we talk about. This can also be voluntary exchange of labor for wages, right? So you get a job, you get paid. You're exchanging your labor for wages or for a salary. In a free enterprise system, all of this is supposed to be a voluntary system. So in this voluntary system, we also know that there's a key element involved, which is private property rights. So private property rights in a free enterprise system is the fundamental idea that individuals own and control their possessions, and they dispose of them as they wish. It's important to note in a free enterprise system that private property rights include what are called both tangible and intangible property. So this can be literally like the land that your house is on or your car. Those are things that are tangible. But it's also considered intangible property like your ideas. So the idea of sort of protecting intellectual property, whether that's the right to a song you've written, or the right to a book you've written, or to an idea you have about a new product. So these are key elements in the free enterprise system. Another key element is the idea of competition. So in a free enterprise system, competition is key. There has to be free competition. So think about when we talked about different types of competition. Really, you're looking for open competition in sort of a monopolistic competition way that anybody can enter the market and anybody has opportunity to start a business. Here's where we run into issues of preventing monopolies as part of free enterprise, which would be an example of government regulation. We also need to sort of think about here, does every individual really freely have the ability to enter a market? Can anybody open a business? This brings up some issues in a free enterprise system of like who has the opportunity to engage in this type of competition. So as you're thinking about positives and negatives of a free enterprise system, this is often a criticism that comes up, that everybody really doesn't have the ability to do that. Another key element in the free enterprise system is what's referred to as the profit motive. And this one may be as controversial as any other part or as any part of the free enterprise system. When we talk about a profit motive as part of free enterprise, what this means is that profit, making money, is the driving force that encourages people and organizations to do anything, that people are sort of pushed by their desire for material well-being, right? To get richer, to have a bigger house, to have a nicer car, to have more money. And so there can be some concern here about this motive. If this motive, profit, is more important than anything else, does that mean it's more important than taking care of people who work for you? Does it mean it's more important than the health of individuals? Is it more important than having healthy children, right? So anytime you say something is the driving force, the most important motive, it means other motives are less important. So as we're thinking about the free enterprise system and the way in which we see government regulation, the profit motive can be one of those that is criticized, at least if that's the only driving force that that motivates people. Another key element of the free enterprise system is the idea that all people have economic freedom. Now, we can think of economic freedom as buying what we want to buy, but we can also think about economic freedom meaning that every individual can freely choose what job they have. Every individual can freely choose the housing that they want to have. And of course, this can bring up issues of, how much economic freedom does everyone have? So do every part of society, does every group have the same economic freedom? But the idea in the free enterprise system is that economic freedom is a key element in the system. So, one of the things that we see coming out of a free enterprise system is individual freedom is a key element, whether it's voluntary exchange or owning private property or starting a business as a part of competition. So, individual freedom is something that often gets emphasized. This, of course, can bring up criticism of what is good for the community versus what is good for the individual, right? So as you're thinking about evaluating free enterprise, one of the criticisms that can be brought up is the emphasis on individual freedom can sometimes maybe mean the community is not considered, right? So if we think about private property, if we think about competition, think about how that might play out. Another outcome of the free enterprise system is that we typically have access to a wide variety of goods and services in a free enterprise system. So when you decide to buy a pair of shoes, you don't have a choice of one or two pairs of shoes. There are hundreds of types of shoes that you can buy because, of course, free enterprise encourages production. So a wide variety of goods and services often comes out of a free enterprise system. The question can be brought forward, how many of these different options can a person afford to buy, or can all people in a free enterprise system afford to buy any of these shoes, right? So this idea again of sort of who has access to this benefit in a free enterprise system. And then finally, one thing that we know has come out of free enterprise systems over the last 200 years is that in virtually all parts of the world, we have seen the development of price systems to determine what things are worth. Now, this can end up being sort of a complicated sort of economic concept when you get into the weeds of it. But basically, price systems exist in every economy, whether they are command economies, market economies, or as the world typically has, mixed economies. But a price system basically says every commodity, every job, every labor has money attached to it. In other words, value equals money. And this is one of the ways that people can both argue that the free enterprise system is a great thing, everything has a dollar value placed on it, or people can argue this is not a great thing because everything has value based on money. This would basically mean that what a person is worth, their labor, has money attached to it, right? Whether you're a doctor, lawyer, day laborer, work in a factory, work at McDonald's, everything has money attached to it. So this can lead to some issues of like sort of division of ideas. We believe all people are equal, but we don't put the same money value on things, right? So we have to sort of define for ourselves as a society what those values are. This also brings us back to the idea of government regulation, right? Our government will regulate this price system to some degree, especially when it comes to money and value, by having a minimum wage, right? That says every person should have a basic value when it comes to a wage system. And of course, we know that what this price system basically means is that overall in the economy, money is king, right? It kind of dictates everything about our economic development, which again can have its positive and negative effects. So, as we are looking at the free enterprise system, I want you guys to think about, maybe take a minute before you move on to the next part of this assignment, and think about the benefits of a free enterprise system. How does it do good things for American society? And then maybe what are some of the disadvantages in a free enterprise system? And we will move to discuss this in a discussion board based on sort of evaluating the free enterprise system.